Welcome to Kit Katastrophe. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Leader Class Shockwave. This figure came out in 2018 as part of Wave 1 of the Leader assortment. Much like most of the Decepticon cast of Siege, Shockwave transforms into a spaceship. At first glance it looks very regal, but upon closer inspection you can easily surmise that this is just the original Shockwave laser cannon turned upside down. I suppose roleplay-sized gun alternate modes still aren't kosher, even when they're as stylized and abstract as this. I guess he'll just sit in the corner with 6-shot and quick switch. There is one singular strut of deployable landing gear in the front, but nail-biters such as myself will have a hard time opening it. Thankfully, there's a 5mm port on the outer side, meaning you can lever it out using a weapon of your choosing. This spaceship mode is one of the best in the Siege toy line, looking like some kind of exploratory vessel or a freighter of some kind. The quote-unquote barrel of the original space gun looks more like some kind of generator, while the robot chest is possibly some kind of massive living quarters, and the robot legs are dual engines with sculpted thrusters at the bottom of Shockwave's feet that are on a side-to-side gimbal of sorts. Then, things get interesting. Shockwave's vehicle mode is able to armor up to become the flagship of Galvatron's Decepticon army, the Revenge. Just 5 extra parts are able to turn what could be seen as a freighter into a massive battleship. The front section looks even more like a giant generator, though could contrary-wise be seen as an even more convincing laser barrel for extreme forward firepower. I don't see why it can't be both. 2 giant components are added to the engines in the back that provide another 6 barrels of firepower, and the outer wings are adjustable. The rear of these pods provide even more rearward thrust. Finally, let's get some attention to the bridge. It's swept back, sort of akin to General Grievous's spaceship from Revenge of the Sith, and is topped with a monocular Shockwave motif, almost as if he's watching out from the bridge. There are 2 winglets on either side which can be folded flush against the tower, but I prefer to keep them out. Let's strip this warship of its upgrades in order to get Shockwave into his robot mode. It's a very straightforward process if you've messed with Shockwaves of yore. It's very similar to Masterpiece Laserwave in that the bridge of the ship only makes the outer panel of the legs, while the rear section forms the rest. Be careful of the plug at the end of the hose, as the rubbery plastic of the hose itself may tear if you pull on it too hard. Always apply the pressure on the hard plastic plug itself. If you get it jammed in too tight, I recommend having a pair of pliers on hand. Just apply gentle pressure and twist a bit, it'll come out. Anyway, I rotate the forearms 180 degrees for vehicle mode just to reduce the number of visible screws, but this is by no means necessary. Make sure to plug in the hose to the bottom of the forearm, however, or else you'll have to get those pliers ready if you want to take it out. The Transformers are all dead. This robot mode captures Shockwave's iconic design to a T. I mean, every Siege figure does that, but Shockwave has one of my favorite designs in Transformers, and this figure nails it. Be he the loyal caretaker of Cybertron or the usurper of the Decepticon throne, this figure looks cold, emotionless, and ruthless. He once again features those bell-bottom shins that I love seeing on futuristic-styled robots, as they help any pose achieve a dynamic curve. Shockwave's asymmetrical phalanges are cast in a nice, unique pale lavender plastic, breaking up all the purple and gray really well. Might I say, the Siege line in general has been laying heavily on sculpted detail. Just about every inch of this figure is covered in sculpted mechanical detail and other technological greeblage, really helping to keep the figure from looking flat. The weathering effects are minimal outside of his silver-painted feet and some errant brushstrokes along his hose for some reason. His chest features some clear plastic, which is chock full of sculpted detail on the reverse, and I'm gonna stop beating around the bush. His head sculpt is fantastic. His purple, empty hexagonal face, the 2 thick silver antennae, and the blazing yellow light piping. Shockwave knocks it out of the park. And under the right lighting conditions, where his front is cast nearly entirely in shadow, except his bright monoculoid can make him look downright frightening. As with most Siege figures, Shockwave is very poseable and is one of my favorite figures to pose out of the entire range. First up, his head is on a ball joint that can swivel pretty much all the way around. Oh, it can get stuck a little on the hinge back here. And it can look up and down, and it has a very nice side-to-side range, so he can emote very well. And as you can see, his light piping is very good. It catches light very easily. His arms are on what appears to be a universal hinge. They swivel forward and backward all the way around, and they have an hinge that brings them outward, and another hinge that brings them up until they smack him in the face. They have a bicep swivel that goes all the way around, and a deep elbow, which forms a nice acute angle, and he has a wrist swivel, something I've been neglecting on a few figures. Optimus Prime had one, Megatron did not, yada yada yada. The hose here on his left arm doesn't actually inhibit any posability, really. It can still go all the way up, all the way out, all the way back. It doesn't really tug against the arm in any pose. And the swivel still works, the elbow still works. It's a very nice hose. You just want to be wary of that connection and do not plug it into any of these because these holes are just a little too small for it. So just keep it on the one under the arm and you'll be fine. And much like his wrist, his gun can swivel for some reason. I guess if they ever want to retool it, they can just replace this with another hand and it'll work fine. He has waist articulation, which is surprising given his, construction. You'd think this would get in the way, but it doesn't, and it can go all the way around. The hips, they have a faux ratchet going forward, and it has very many teeth. There's very few degrees in between each click, which is a very good thing. The outward movement is just a simple friction hinge. The thigh swivel is mushroom swivel, though I think it's up in this piece, actually. Yeah. And he has an adequate knee bend. It's about 90 degrees, and it's of the same faux ratchet as the forward hip joint. And finally, he has an ankle pivot, which means he can't exactly get into as wide of poses as, say, Optimus or Megatron, but he can get into some very natural stances. After all, Shockwave is not a very athletic person, so a man of science can just sit there and ponder dramatically. To armor up Shockwave into his final mode, he comes with 5 accessories, 4 of which are pairs of mirrored parts. First, he comes with the LV Duo Pulse radiographs, which are just twin cannons that stick onto the bottom of Shockwave's feet. They have optional flip-out wings that you could either flare outwards or fold away underneath. The other pair of parts are the LV Gamma Disruptor launchers, which served as the extra boosters on the Revenge. They slide onto Shockwave's shoulders and become an extra pair of arms, complete with blasters identical to his own left arm. His final piece is just a backpack. It doesn't have any doofy combat system name, but presumably it is an upgrade to his LV Thermal Range Neuron Beam, otherwise called his left hand. I like to sweep the extra panels backwards, sort of like coattails. Here we have Shockwave's super robot form. It's alright. See, this is where this figure gets a lot of its ire from. Many seem to assume that these extra armor-up parts were just a way to get Shockwave from the Voyager price point to the Leader price point, because, face it, Shockwave isn't exactly a Decepticon known for wearing mech suits, and the inner robot was just about perfect. I can totally understand where someone is coming from, since he would have done just fine as a Voyager-class figure. That being said, the super robot doesn't look half bad. It definitely feels a little forced, though, considering the massive backpack that doesn't particularly do much. Those winglets coming downwards and away from his shoulder pauldrons seem like a cause for concern, especially if he makes a poorly angled fall off of a high place. I do really dig the four-armed robotic Shiva of Righteous Destruction. Of course, with the extensive 5mm peg and port system of Siege, you can easily come up with alternate configurations of parts to suit your tastes. Whoa, 2 articulation segments in one video? What is this? Crazy? Anyway, I'll spare you talking about all the joints that I've already covered. I'll just focus on the arms because that's pretty much everything that's changed. The arms themselves have the same amount of range. They can go up like that because there is a special cut groove here that allows space for the main shoulder joint. And of course, the secondary shoulder joint can also go outwards. The extra arms are on a swivel, and they have a double jointed, I guess, elbow of sorts. They can also twist their guns as well, if you want that for some reason. So, posability on Shockwave doesn't actually change all too much when he's powered up. There's really nothing that gets in the way. The waist still rotates, even though there's this massive backpack. The head still moves, the legs, they're unchanged, so Shockwave wins out when it comes to posability because nothing's in the way. Surprise! We're not done! The extra super robot bits can all come off and combine to form a giant mush that is ostensibly the Green Goblin's glider. This is a great use of the extra mass, since you'll most likely be displaying Shockwave in his base robot form anyway, and it makes for some extra play options, like whooshing him around your desk. Whoosh! I'm very happy with my Shockwave. His vehicle modes are so much fun. His robot mode is perfect, and his super robot mode is a fun bonus. If you can stomach the leader class price point, especially if you actually like the super robot bits, then it's only logical that you pick this guy up. And that's about all I can think about for the ending segment, so it's only logical I end the video. This has been Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.